Hi, Virgo. This is your May astrology for all Virgo signs, Sun, Moon, Rising, Venus. I always throw out there right off the bat, if you're a sun sign or a rising sign, then I'm really getting into more of the core and following through with the houses, more along that line. But if you're a Venus or a moon sign, then I'm really getting more into your emotional depths. And it may feel that way a little bit for you no matter what. I am getting some frustration. Okay, Spirit gives me a tulip before I get into the astrology. Spirit gives me a tulip, and first thing that comes to mind when I was being given this tulip is remember, they don't last long. I feel like this is a very emotional depth of coming to understand things from a soulful versus a material point of view. And you are going through some frustrations. For some of you, it's helplessness, rejectedness, afraid, or fear. And you're working through it. What I'm really being given is you're reevaluating the level of importance, especially within your relationships, the level of importance on a three-dimensional, materialistic, three-dimensional world level versus coming into those higher dimensional, spiritual, soulful connections and really starting to make decisions. And for some of you, this is causing heartache. Scare it. What was trying to come out is not just heartache, but for some of you, that's causing fear or being scared of taking the proper actions within it. You're tapping into Mars energy in this sense. I'm being told you got a whole lot of root, sacral chakra, solar plexus energy going on. Really tapping into your sexual, emotional creativity, how you feel about yourself, your power, your self-esteem, survival, stability, security, being grounded, and then, keep going up the chain as far as those chakras go and into communication. Creativity within the communication. So you're going to be stepping into new ideas, stepping out of your comfort zone, exploring new levels of self-esteem. But it's definitely a challenging time within relationships and truly coming into growth of them, so that you can see where it's going to take you within the next, hold that up, within the next couple of months. And a lot of this is going to have to do with the energies that are going on, also with Venus going into retrograde. Before I get in any deeper, I do want to throw out there that if you've been following me for a while, you may want to check the website or keep ideas. Pay attention, come back and check like my social media pages, because I am starting to create my own essential oils line, and it should be dropping within the month. I just want to throw that out there, and I'm doing it with the astrologies, throwing it out there because the first essential oil line is all based on how I view astrology. Hold on one moment. Neptune. Excuse me. You are not going to eat mommy's bag. No. My cat trying to eat one of my medicine bags. All right. But the first essential oil line is coming out, definitely all speaking about how astrology helps heal you, and it's called Astrological Attunements. And just keep your eye out for it if you're interested, because I've created the whole line with Spirit, and it is completely all dealing with spiritual and soulful healing. Now, with that being said, I have to do something here because my little stuff is, my whole little desk up here since I've been working on these oils is just a hot mess. But I need, yeah, now I can read it because that's like my notes here. Now, before I get any further, let me throw out some information for you. First off, I am noticing in the astrology from the 10th through the 17th that is going to be an incredibly powerful week for everyone. And this is because you have a lot of planets that are shifting from direct or shadow into retrograde during that week. But Spirit is telling me we're going to start definitely noticing the energies of Mars and Ceres starting to conjunct on the 7th through the 11th is when you're going to start feeling it, coming into that sensitivity of it. However, on the 20th through the 27th is when it will be in the same degree. All month long, Ceres and Mars are going to be conjuncting. It's going to be coming out of coming out of Aquarius, going into Pisces. You're going to feel most of this energy in a Pisces energy, and I will get back to you as to where exactly that is for you. And it will be extra strong because Neptune is there. And Mars is your passion, action, aggression. I was just saying Mars energy. I hadn't even looked at this, put those two together. It's also your sacral chakra, but Ceres is too close to home energies, meaning a little bit hitting underneath the belt. And it's also all about nurturing or neglecting. Now, when we take a better look at where that is for you in your chart, we'll explain that. Now, you also have the full moon, which is going to take place in Scorpio on the 7th. Scorpio full moons can be incredibly emotionally sweet and beautiful and powerful or destructive. And that all depends on where you're taking that Scorpio energy. Because Scorpio can be the biggest detective of all. But it's also, I call it like a sexy Sherlock Holmes. Like, I need to know everything about everything, and it will dissect it to where there's nothing left to dissect. So it can really go overboard, so to speak. But it can also be sexuality and feeling very good. In Scorpio, we're the most emotional. That's going to take place on the 7th. You have Mercury, which is moving into Gemini on the 11th. You have Saturn, which will go retrograde on the 11th. Remember, I said from the 10th through the 17th, it's going to be a very sensitive week as the planets shift. You have Mars entering Pisces on the 13th. Venus goes into retrograde on the 13th. Jupiter goes retrograde on the 14th. On the 17th, the North Node enters the cusp from Cancer to Gemini. And it's going to be there for the rest of the month for the most part. So you're going to be feeling that little bit of that North Node energy in both places, coming from both energies. Even though technically it's still in Cancer, it is definitely picking up Gemini energy. On the 18th, Pallas also goes retrograde. The Sun enters Gemini on the 20th. You have the new moon on the 22nd in Gemini. Mercury enters Cancer on the 28th. And Juno, which is in Libra, comes out of retrograde on the 27th. That's your second house. Now, with that being said, let me throw this over here. And we're just going to get right into it. Whoa. All right. Your first house doesn't have anything in it. But trust me, you got more than enough energy coming out of the second house to cover that first house. Like I said, Juno is in retrograde right now, and it's going to come out of retrograde on the 27th. Juno is sacrificing commitment. In Libra, about balancing your self-worth, self-value, self-esteem. It also has how may I hear and make. Make is the level of the lotus flower. So it's asking you, are you starting to spiritually bloom? Are you starting to find the soulful connection within you that allows you to believe that you are getting a breath of fresh air and taking on a new you? Taking on the shape-shifting self-worth, self-value, self-esteem? Or are you still stuck in the mud? The lotus flower, which is make, grows in a swamp. So only can you find the most truthful spiritual development of yourself by digging through your swamp. Haumea is your collective consciousness. So you're having no choice but to start to evaluate your value. Your levels of, do you feel liberated or not? Self-worth, self-value, self-esteem, and shape-shifting in this energy. Being created by Libra is where you're always or often wanting to put other people first and putting yourself last. And this is a telltale sign right now that it's time to stop allowing yourself to be less important. It's time for you to start reclaiming who you are, your authentic self. And if you're incredibly possessive at this time, this is because it's actually triggering the insecurities that are keeping you from your self-worth, your self-value, and your self-esteem. It is triggering where you feel the lack of liberation. But if you are coming into that power, then you are finding it that law of attraction will also help build your money and your possessions, like your phone, the small important things that help you be you. But when it's in jeopardy, then it gets possessive and controlling because it doesn't know how to handle it. And this would be all underneath the skin for you, kind of like in your inner waters. So it's all about shape shifting into your liberation and your value and reclaiming it. Now, you don't have anything in your third, your fourth house. Your fifth house, though, has has Jupiter in it and Pluto in it still. And they're about to go retrograde this month, which means up until they go retrograde, Jupiter goes retrograde on the 14th. Pluto already has gone retrograde. So Pluto is all about death, decay, and destruction for renewal, rebirth, and regeneration. Pluto is the only planet when it goes retrograde that doesn't go inward because Pluto's already inward. Pluto just starts kicking down the door saying, I'm not taking this shit anymore. Now, this is in your fourth house. So this is getting into backboning what that second house was telling you. This is speaking to you about your personal foundations, your personal roots, your inner emotional security. Pluto is going, I'm not going to accept you to not value yourself anymore. I'm not going to accept the lack of self-esteem and self-worth. It is time to reclaim it. It is time to bring that power back, but from an inner emotional security, from the depths of who and what you are. This is where the karmic lessons are learned. The reincarnation is created. It's also the home. But remember, the home on a materialistic world, because I said Spirit was saying you're having a little bit of tug of war between the three-dimensional world and the 5, 6, and higher. You know, on that level of true spiritual soul connection, love. That is this. Your inner emotional security can't be taken away from you unless you accidentally gave it away. You misplaced it. And this is reclaiming your value, your worth, your connection with spirit, your connection with you, the vessel that you live in, for lack of better terms, is the root of the personal foundation, the decisions and the life that is being lived here. And it's asking you to strengthen that core. Now, are you strengthening it soulfully as well as materialistically? Or are you getting confused as to materialistically versus soulfully? That's why I feel like that tug of war is coming in. And when you listen to this is going to get better. Even if it has to go through some trenches before it gets there, walk through some mud puddles, this is going to tell you how to create this to be better for you. Jupiter is going into retrograde too, which means abundance of it is coming in at you. Prior to it being in retrograde on the 14th, it's in shadow energies. So it's really coming in looking at some darker energies about where you don't feel inner emotional security so that you can tap into what needs to shift and change to make it happen. Because like I said, when Pluto's in retrograde for these months, Pluto is like, I'm not taking this shit anymore. This is time for me to really start walking my talk. And really, it's Pluto in retrograde is kind of like, well, I've learned these lessons. So you're going to do something about it now? Or are you just going to continue to complain? And that's just the way Pluto is. In order for death, decay, and destruction to bring renewal, rebirth, regeneration, it has to do that in order to make that shift. So I feel like you're really going through a soulful shape shifting energy in general. Now, as you come into your 5th house, that's why Spirit is bringing up the creativity. You have Saturn here, still for a couple more months before it a very short amount of time, more or less. Still, it's still bringing in that Saturn energy in Aquarius, which is your 5th house. Saturn is rules, walls, and boundaries. Usually it's very restricted. But in Aquarius, it's kind of like, let me stretch and see what I'm willing to try. This is your pursuit of pleasure. This is your creativity, your inner child, your hobbies, your habits, your personal interests, where fun is created. What makes you tick and enjoy life? So Saturn here is going, well, let's take some chances at stepping out of our comfort zone and kind of shifting them in different ways to see if we can bring happiness, if we can bring that inner child zest of life back to you. Enjoy being part of life and the life that you're living right now, especially with everybody in quarantine. This is asking us, how can we step out of our comfort zone, step out of the box, so to speak, and help create your inner self-expression, which is just going to come back to creating that inner emotional security and strengthening it, which technically is a very beautiful thing. You also have Palace here, which is strategic thinking, which is allowing you to put energy into it and know wisely how to adjust. So it's a very powerful time for this before these energies start to come back together. And they are going to be technically, they're very close. They're not exactly conjuncting, even though they're in different signs. They are definitely still close. So they're kind of marinating that inner emotional security with your inner creativity and asking you, so what are you going to do about it? Are you going to step up? You're going to step out of the box. You're going to try something new. You're going to give something a new chance, because that's what you should be looking at right now. Strengthening your core through creative expression. But the 5th house is also sexuality, and it's also about dating, because dating, romance, sex all comes into those personal interests that we love and we want to enjoy. So it's also asking us, are we expressing ourselves? How do you feel about yourself? In one sense. So it's asking you what you have to do to help you feel good about yourself, about that creative expression, to bring it home. Now, sorry, I thought I was going to spill my drink then. La, 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 la. Yes, I do everything off my phone. Now, your 7th house is where it comes into question a little bit. That's the relationships. Okay? And your 7th house is ruled by Pisces. Pisces, I hate to say this, but and that's for me, I'm a Virgo rising, so we're talking about myself too. Spirit is saying it has to do with cooperative energies within the relationship. And are they fair or balanced? That's what I was just told. Understanding the truth between open enemies and truthful, honest, healthy relationships. Pisces energy is very easy to manipulate or deceive, because Pisces is so creative, so full of love, so full of zest and majestic. I didn't say majestic, they did. Mystery. Majestic mystery. I was trying to say majestic and mystery. They're saying majestic. They just keep throwing it out of my mouth. The idea is so glorious that we easily want to believe people are better than they are. And sometimes we get taken advantage of. We start to see the truths of what their actually purpose is in our life, whether it's from us or from them. Now you have Mars and Ceres, like I said, conjuncting in this energy. This is asking you, either coming into a brand new, truthfully sexual experience that could have karma written all over it, positive or negative, because Ceres is the threefold. She's too close to home, and she's speaking to you about what you nurture or what you've neglected within these relationships. Mars is your inner warrior, your inner passion, fire, action, aggression, but it's also your inner sexuality and your inner belly dancer. So is these relationships making you feel good about yourself? Or is the karma coming in and showing you where that inner emotional security, self-worth, self-value, and self-esteem are in question? And are you going to notice this? Are you going to make the correct changes? Are you going to make sure that you have the right people in your life? This is saying that in some areas, you may be looking at the wrong people in these relationships. And relationships are not just about love. It's your friends, it's your family, it's your children, it's your parents, it's your working environment. Anything you care about, you have a relationship with. So in these relationships are their spiritual, soulful morals being connected. Spirit just said that. I did not. Are the relationships rising to the morals that are going to help strengthen the relationship? Or are you seeing where deceiving energies are? Neptune has a way of giving Pisces that fantasy smack you in the face with harsh reality energy. Mars, again, sexuality, your sacral chakra, your relationships, karma, nurturing, or neglecting. This is all asking you, are you paying very clear attention to what you're allowing in your relationships? And are they what you want? Are you seeing the truths so that you can make the proper decisions? All month you're going to be feeling that, because like I said, on the 7th through the 11th is when you're going to start feeling that energy conjunct. But Spirit is saying from the 20th through the 27th is when it's going to hit its max. Now, I did miss, I'm sorry, I'll go back for a second. I did miss your third house is where your full moon is going to take place, which is all about communication and oversensitivity. The full moon is on the 7th. So you may want to jot that down, because it's going to bring up some definite communication and oversensitivity, and you may be over analyzing it. You may be over pushing it, or it could be very much a positive sexuality, positive ooey gooey, soft and chewy, because Scorpio goes a little bit of both ways. Scorpio is all about sexuality, but it's all about sensitivity. So it's really depending on what's going on in your life. Are you coming into a brand new full moon? But full moons usually are about release, surrender, and let go. So usually something's being brought to light that you don't realize, and it's being forced up. Now, this is communication in a very sensitive space, because that's where it is for you. For you, this is learning how to not word vomit and learning how to communicate in healthy ways with yourself as well as with others so that you can make the shifts happen. Let me go back to where I was now because I just was more or less reminded I missed it. Your 8th house is where Chiron and Lilith is. Now, this is the rules, the walls, the boundaries of these relationships. We were just talking about these relationships. Chiron automatically is saying, by being here, Chiron is saying you're learning to set a new platform, a new foundation that is healthy for these relationships. Because in the past, you've set poor relationships that were not healthy. Poor foundations on the relationships that weren't completely soulfully strong. Lilith is asking you in this case, because she can be a very positive ally, she can be speaking to you about strengthening what it is you need. She reminds us we burn. Our life burns. We have the soul fire to burn. So are you allowing yourself to burn? Are you putting yourself in a position that you're restricting yourself from these relationships from being as valuable, as powerful, standing in your own power, setting new foundations with the rules, the walls, the boundaries of these relationships? However, at the end of Aries, you have Eris still here, which is asking you, where are you still using the vampire syndrome, sinking your teeth into what doesn't serve you? And I call it the vampire syndrome because the way I see it is every vampire movie we've ever seen, you see the vampires be sucking on a human when they're trying to have, that's what they do. And it's always said when the human dies, stop sucking on the blood, because at that point you're sucking on dead blood and it would kill a vampire. So the point is, are you still sinking your teeth into things that are harming you? Eris is trouble, toil, strife, and injustice. Are you still setting these boundaries according to the trouble, toil, strife, and injustice of the relationships of your past? This is a stepping stone you have to learn from. It's not saying to continue to sink your teeth into bad foundations because they're not working. It's harmful to you. Learning the new ones, coming into expressing yourself, your true self-fire, and realizing that we're refoundationing the relationships and what is healthy and what is not. That is where you're going to find it's going to start making its changes and work for you in positive ways. You're going to be feeling that for quite a while because these energies are not in any hurry to move out of that 8th house. Now, your 9th house is where Uranus is and the sun is until the sun moves out on the 20th. Is in your 9th house, which is Taurus. This is all about soulful connection. Coming into that spiritual truth. But it's also ruled by the bull, which means there's some stubborn inflexibility that needs to shift here. Because you really need to be tapping into your ethics, your morals, your spiritual truths, your higher self, and realize that the luxury of that spiritual truth and love for self is what will design these relationships in your life, your inner emotional security, your self-worth, self-value, self-esteem, and liberation. But this is coming into trusting in that spiritual energy. Fixed signs don't like to change. They're very set in their ways and going very strong. So as you're shifting this spiritual energy, this can be a rough time for you. Like I said, that tug of war. And you're learning how to trust in your spiritual significance, your soulful significance. You're learning how to allow this to rise and grow. And this is definitely something you want to keep doing. Uranus here is helping you to come into finding that spiritual independence. But like I said, when you're stepping out of the values, self-worth, self-value, self-esteem, and you're in insecurities that are targeting them, It makes you become possessive. Taurus energy. This is about the law of attraction, and if you're in insecurities, then you're bringing more reason for insecurities. If you're coming out of that and you're tapping into that shape-shifting energy, then you're stepping into it. And then Gemini is your 10th house. Mercury, soul fire, Venus. Honor, reputation, prestige. It's your social foundation. The communication and what you are putting out all has to do with what are you shape-shifting. If the people in your life don't look like they're taking you somewhere, and I mean it in an honest way, if you look at the people in your life and you see where they're going to be in many years, is that where you want to be? Honor, reputation, prestige, final success, financial success, and social foundations. It's your responsibility to make sure that you're putting the people in your life that are healthy for you. Are they? I love you guys. Bye.